Hello, welcome to Hot Dice Nerds. We are talking to Tom again, the author of Weird Weird West tabletop RPG. If you saw our last episode, then this follows on from that, where we're going to finish looking over the game to get an idea of the concept of it. We had some high-level discussions last time. If you didn't see that, then you can find that on our Twitch. You can find it on our YouTube. You can find that on our Spotify, wherever you hear podcasts. And if you're looking for us, hotdicenerds.com, it's all there. So I've got the Weird Weird West book up.
Yeah, if you've not seen that first video, pause this, go watch that, then come back to the VOD.
Probably a good advice.
We're jumping into the rules of the game after an intro.
Yeah, we talked about like the game, the vibe of it. We talked about like the way that it's like story first and rules second.
Yeah, that sort of stuff. Narrative first, fiction focused. We took a look at some playbooks and stuff and talked about what moves are and how you're choosing the things that you care about as opposed to the things that you're good at. So we're going to go through the rest of the core book, I think.
We did game flow and core mechanics, and then we also looked at some of the cards for the different like things that you can play as. So we looked at the common moves cheat sheet, which I'm just going to throw that up on the screen for people. So if you watched it, it was this that talked about the various like aim and fire and spray and pray and barter and haggle and like the core moves that everyone can do. And then we also looked at the sneak, didn't we? I think. Which is the sneak. What you can do as a sneak character. And all the different roles that come with that. There's also ones for fighter that have sharpshooter, commander, tank, and like other moves and things. There's one for a thinker. It's a research, technology, surgeon, and like different moves for them.
You're the more academically inclined person.
And then the weirdo at the end.
Yeah, so there had to be one for like the raw doing weird things in the Wild West. So they all have fun options, but I think a lot of people gravitate to the sneaker and the weirdo just because that's what RPG people like doing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, they're all like completely distinct with their own fun toys they get to play with and their own fun like little verbs and stuff.
Cool. We got Cat in the chat. Hello, she says. Hello.
Hi. Hey, Cat.
One of the Hot Dice all-time great nerds. Been on many of our games. Many an accent. Many an outfit. Couldn't do it without her. So, we were looking at game flow and core mechanics.
So if you want to pull up the PDF and
this is where we were.
Yeah. So the core of the game is this loop of the GM presenting obstacles and problems, you rolling dice when appropriate, and going back to the GM for the new problem. That loop of like, it encourages this snowball mounting, getting by on the skin of your teeth kind of feel. For a game that is designed to last 2 to 3 to 4 sessions, so that you're sort of reaching the end of your little season of story or your little episode, however you want to dice it up.
Yeah.
With yourself like full of bullets and stab wounds and you're all broken and damaged, but you've done the thing.
Okay. Cool.
So if we just keep going through the PDF, I'll talk like quickly about each
attributes.
Section. Yeah. So your attributes are like in Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder. They are the bit where you get to choose what to be good at. So you're good at your reflexes, or your smarts, or your cunning, or your grit, and they're quite broad, as you can imagine.
We talked about these. They're like, you're bad at one, you're all right at another, you're good at something else, and you're great at one more.
Just because it's always fun to choose the thing that you're bad at, as opposed to people roll for them or something.
And it means that there's no way to like. Everyone's got variety, so like
you can't game the system.
Or maybe everyone's all bad at one thing.
+2. Or that, or you've all accidentally chosen smarts to be the weak thing, and none of you can ever reason about anything happening, and you have to just wing everything that you're doing.
Amazing. All right, and then advantage and disadvantage, something you see in a lot of games.
Yeah. So it's my like favorite mechanic of Dungeons and Dragons. This idea that if you can argue your point of like, well, I should be able to get a bit further on that because I did this thing and that thing. It's an easy way for the GM to say, here's an extra dice, just for good luck. Because you're always rolling 2d6 and adding them together. So advantage is 3d6 and dropping the lowest. So it's on the bell curve, it really improves your odds. You have to do quite badly to roll 3 twos or whatever.
Yeah, you're rolling with advantage is often something that is like significant bump in chance of success.
Exactly, yeah. And disadvantage really fucks you over. trying to roll a high number on 3d6 and dropping the highest is a significant disadvantage.
Fair enough. So for players playing this game, are they mostly rolling d6s for everything they're doing?
You're always rolling d6s. There is no other die size needed. Shout out to my Warhammer nerds. I like the idea of like not having to fuck around with lots of different dice. I know that everyone does have polyhedral dice. It's the fun bit of the hobby.
It's like everyone we know. Like,
everyone we know. If you maybe got this game and you're introducing it to friends, you can grab your Monopoly dice or your Risk dice.
Do not leave your home. Do not walk 3 doors down. Do not kick in their front door and do not demand to know how many dice they have because they will always only have d6.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think it's easier. It also lends itself to that idea of a core human thing of rolling more dice is fun than not rolling more dice. And if you're only using d6s, you're more likely to be rolling just a handful of dice as opposed to one big dice, which everyone likes doing.
Cat in the chat says Tom's camera looks super sharp, isn't you?
No, I think maybe I'm less greasy than I was last time.
Yeah, we're well lit. It's daylight.
Yeah, it's daylight.
We've got our government mandated 8 minutes of sunshine.
Yeah. I'm enjoying the 4 days of summer here we get in England.
So, 2 things everyone loves: luck and then wealth and money.
Yeah, so luck is a sort of just because I want you to reach that end point and I want you to reach it battered and broken. Every time you miss a roll, that is to roll 2d6 and get a 6 or less, you mess up the thing that you're doing at that moment in time, but you get a luck point and you can add on your luck point next roll. So you can maybe stack up like 2 or 3 luck points because you've rolled badly over the last session or so, and then when the big roll comes at the end, 2d6 plus 4, because I've got 4 luck points, and you can guarantee that like moment of cinematic, oh my god, he's pulled it out of the bag.
Okay, yeah, I like it.
Just to help you reach that like boss fight. Oh, don't fuck up quite at the end. You just get over the curve.
So when it comes to declaring that you're using your luck, is this I roll and then I choose to use my luck, or is this I roll and find out whether it's success or fail and then I choose to use my luck? Like, where does that fall?
Yeah, you can roll your dice and roll a 6 and then spend 2 luck to go up to an 8 to achieve a partial success, for example.
Okay, so because I know the dice limits of what I'm rolling, I can. I'm never rolling against a blind number. Like in D&D, you roll to hit, and you have to ask, does a 12 hit?
Yeah. Good point. You always know that you want a 7, 8, or a 9 at least, and a 10 or more is the best. You're always aiming for that.
And everyone knows that, right? Which takes a little relief off of the GM, because the GM doesn't have to know if they're rolling this and they've got a fire weapon.
There is no idea of like a GM having to come up with a difficulty check on the spot, as it were.
Kat says she has a really bad habit on D&D of in her head making this really cool move or attack, and then you go to play it out and roll shite, so the luck will be something she'd really like.
So because you can add your luck after your roll, you can be like, okay, I take out my Winchester rifle and I blow his hat off from 600 yards away just to prove a point to the undead sheriff, and then you roll and you're like a 5 and you're like, well, I guess I don't do that, but you can spend your luck. If you really want that thing, you can push yourself.
And it's a guaranteed transactional sale as well. It's not like when you say, oh, I'm going to use my like luck feature of D&D to re-roll, oh, I still failed. Or
Yeah,
I wanna
you're not
add on
re-rolling.
these extra 12 points. Does that work?
Yeah.
No, it still doesn't work. You know for
Exactly,
a fact, if I have, like, I missed by 3 and I've got 4 luck, so if I spend 3 of my 4 luck, it's going to work.
Yeah. And then you get the fun thing, because it's all guaranteed, you get that little gap of maybe you roll a 6 and you really wanted a 10 or more.
Mm-hmm.
Is it worth spending the luck to go up to 7 so that
Yeah.
you at least get something? You get to have that like decision process, which doesn't come up often because, like you say, most games are like highly random, very very random. Which this, you do moves and you never know what the GM's going to throw at you and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But it's a moment of guaranteed. Oh fuck!
Yeah,
Okay, I'll spend my 2 luck to do the thing.
The GM's behind the board work, like the stuff that you don't see and don't know how it's going to be. Like, you scored a success, but you don't know like what that success looks like until you hear about it. You scored a success with a penalty, but you don't know what that penalty looks like. Like, that's where the chaos comes in.
Do you risk a penalty? Are you in a good position, like going into the roll? Are you dangling off the edge of the cliff? Is it worth spending the luck to be like, I have to get a 10 on this roll because otherwise I'm up shit? Like, you get that fun little conversation.
All right, so what about wealth and money?
So wealth and money is it's basically a section here to say, don't worry about it. We don't track dollars, we don't track coins, we don't track a measure of each character's wealth. You are assumed to be professional monster hunters. You are assumed to have enough dollars to have a night in a hotel, some food for your horse, some ammo for your gun, and we just don't worry about it. When you watch The Matrix, you don't see the scenes of them having to like
purchase ammunition,
buy food. Like, it's we just cut that bit out of the game. It's just not a concern.
There are no toilets on the Star Trek Enterprise.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we just don't care about you having to like, oh, I really want the gun that I want, but I don't quite have enough dollars for it. That is a vibe of the game. By all means, that is a vibe of the game.
Yeah, it's like in Dungeons and Dragons, that creates the whole kind of 3-session side quest to earn enough money to go back and buy a bowl you really liked.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, but when you're trying to get a campaign done in 3 or 4 sessions, then,
you're banging out 3 sessions. Everyone, we don't care about money. You're all getting injured all the time because you're mostly rolling success with penalties. We don't track having to buy grain for your horse. Just get to the thing, do the thing.
And then you're saying if you do need something, barter and haggle.
Exactly. So I wanted to have this fun bit of like, I really do need a very good rifle because we're about
Sorry, just saw in the chat. Someone said, Neo, lend me a tenner, pal. I need a weapon.
Yeah, that would be a different vibe of a film. I would maybe watch a mini-series of that. Why can't we make money? We're in the Matrix.
Just Neo checking his balance on screen.
How is there nothing in my Monzo?
Just like, oh no, you've got to hold. No, the reader's on the side. Oh
yeah.
All right. Yeah.
So bar and haggle is the like, if you know that you are going to have this point of tension of like, we really do need to buy some guns, or we do, it's a thing in the story. This is an important moment. There's a move for it. You can roll a move. And it's a little mechanic that takes
conscript a bunch of drunks from a bar to help you fight something, and none of them have guns. Guess what? You got to go barter and haggle 10 guns from somewhere.
We need to arm the people that live in the fort that are fighting the Vulture Queen. I guess we need a load of rifles. Let's go find some rifles. Like, that could be a thing that you have to do.
Yeah. Cool. All right. What we got next? Inventory and how equipment works.
Yeah. So this is just me waffling on to say, just write it on your sheet. You have as much as makes sense. We don't worry about encumbrance. We don't worry about things like that. The game has a tag system, which is to say very loosely that you can write next to your inventory. What I recommend you do is maybe have a rifle and write next to it, forceful. This thing really knocks people back. Or messy. When you use this on someone, you're going to turn him into a fine red paste. Or different things like that. There's a list of tags at the back, and I encourage you to come up with your own.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, because if you put a messy tag on it, then you've got a rifle that, like, If you shoot someone,
really
sure, it's going to
messes
blast
people
their
up.
face off, but also everyone's going to hear it, right? That's going to be a loud fucking gun.
And it sort of preemptively takes care of that, like, you know, in other games where maybe you're using a sword and your GM was like, hold on, I thought that there's no way that that sword could reach. And in your head, you're like, no, it's my long sword. I have a long sword. And the GM's like, yeah, but they're quite... You have that back and forth by just having a tag maybe of, like, the dagger that you have is discreet. You've written your tag of discreet. You can hide it when you get into the building. Oh, well, did the guards not find the knife on you where they searched you coming into the building? No, because it's discreet. Hey, I've got a discreet knife. It just clears up those little, like, problem points.
Yeah, that's good. Because this harks back to what you were saying about the idea that the game is essentially everyone is telling the story of a movie and they are the characters within that movie.
Exactly, yeah. So at the very end of the book, I've got a list of tags of, like, awkward to use. It could be dangerous to use. So you have that thing of, like, maybe you want to get a really good rifle and your GM wants to give you some kind of penalty. You do really well on a barter and haggle, and then your GM is like, okay, write versatile next to your rifle. You can use it all different kinds of ranges, but also write dangerous. That rifle is held together by willpower and nails, and it's like a little thing that you have to inform the fiction.
Great. Okay, and then you've got your next section's your horse and rummaging through their saddlebags.
Yeah, so the rummage move, you can see there's a common move for it. It's just a fun get out of jail card. If you need an item and you're in the middle of the desert, or you don't want to barter and haggle or something like that, we assume that you can go to your horse and you can pull out the lantern that you forgot that you had, or you can pull out the ivory dagger. Oh god, we need an ivory dagger because only ivory daggers can harm swamp witches. Oh, I think I've got an ivory dagger, let me rummage for it. You rummage, you roll some dice, you have a little outcome and a little move associated with it.
Okay, that's really useful, because that saves you having to, like, go shopping or give up and walk away. And as you just
exactly, yeah.
Action, right?
If you've narrated that you've got to the place, and then you're like, I can't believe I forgot to bring X that I needed, you can rummage for it, and if you roll pretty poorly, maybe you rummage for it, but it explodes after you use it once, for some reason.
Yeah, it's good as well, because it keeps people in the direction, because one thing I've learned about no matter which players you play with, if they go into a situation that is too dangerous for them, you cannot make them turn back. If you want to stop them,
they'll
you're going to have to kill them. They will...
Because characters in a film never run away.
They never run away. They don't regroup and come back.
Moving forward.
Yeah.
No player ever wants to do the video game survival thing. Even if your game is oriented around that.
Push through and be the hero. So
pushing through.
If they've gone somewhere they shouldn't and it's too dangerous, like just as a piece of GM advice for anyone ever running a game, they've gone somewhere and it's too dangerous because in your head what they're about to meet is too dangerous, just change what they're going to meet. Change what it is.
Yeah.
It's that you thought that
or be prepared that you're going to kill them.
You warned them about the dangerous level 12 dungeon thing that was round there, that everyone who enters there always dies. And they head down anyway, despite your warnings. When they get there, they are not going to survive it, and they will not turn back. So instead, just make it that, like, the place has really shitty ladders and everyone just keeps falling to their death. It's an amusing side note, and then move your dungeon of terror somewhere else. Like, because people don't turn back, and having the ability to rummage through a saddlebag to get the magic thing that you need, whether it's literally magic or just like, oh shit, I think I have a lamp, is a great feature to have. So, ruination, or your weird ruination. What's that?
Yeah, this is just the classic. Every monster that hunts monsters is a like that sort of fun. You know, the best vampire's blade, like. I wanted that. You're all a form of a daywalker, fucked up monster yourself.
Right, so this is basically, within your like class or archetype, a special super bonus thing that you have, but every time you use it, the darkness creeps upon you.
Exactly.
And so eventually
all
you're going to hit...
Sorry, go on, yeah.
Eventually you're going to hit a limit where it like tips. It's like a tipping point, and as you get closer to it, each time you trigger this, you run a higher risk that like maybe... this is the thing that's going to push you over the edge.
Exactly, yeah. And like I've had players in playtests just not want to use it at all because they're worried about, I don't want to become a monster, so they just don't use it, and that's fine. You could run a game where none of you use it, and maybe you're not.
We looked at the dice rolls and the stats for it, and even the worst possible rolls, you could still do it once per session. Yeah. So if you're doing 3 sessions, guaranteed 3. So you can always use it at least 3 times, and with good dice rolls, you could maybe use it like 10 times or something.
Yeah. And then like I had another play session where somebody managed to time it. They had like 2 boxes left, and they were doing their last big roll. I think we were like 5 sessions in, and they did their last big roll, and they achieved the thing they wanted in fiction, but they became a monster, and it was a great finisher to their character sort of thing.
Okay, yeah. So when you mark your 10th step of your track, your characters succumb to their weirdness. Whatever this means in practice is up to you, your table, and your GM, but it should be dramatic. So you're essentially talking about turning into a monster that either does or doesn't stop you being part of the gang.
I'm not going to tell you that you can't be a gang of vampires hunting vampires. If that's the thing that you're going for, yeah. And yeah, it's just an extra thing. So all fighters can destroy their enemies. That's as loose as you want it to be. Maybe you just you're in a scene where you're really getting shot up and really beat to a pulp, and your fighter character's fuck all this, I kill them. Fuck this, no, I'm out. I become monstrous. Whether that means you dissolve them with your mind or you turn into a werewolf.
Bear claws and just rip heads.
You do the thing. Just a way to keep things moving. And yeah, I've had fun people interpreting that in a fun way. Someone was like, oh yeah, okay, I want to kill that bad guy, and then we're back in the scene. And I'm like, no, you could kill all that. If you want to become Nosferatu for 30 minutes, you can kill all of them, and then we'll go to the next thing. And the thinker can learn the unlearnable. What does that mean? Well, it's up to you. Maybe you activate your power, and Cthulhu talks to you, and now you know where the hidden base is. Yeah. Whatever your character thing is.
So, trauma. What's trauma all about?
Yeah, so trauma is it's effectively the HP system, and in the spirit of not just wanting numbers going up and down, trauma is just a little pyramid that you stack up. Mm-hmm. So one of the consequences that a GM can give you is, oh god, you get shot in the leg, take a level 2 trauma and write shot in leg, please. And it's just a thing to stack up to show how bruised, bloodied you are. Maybe one of your traumas is despair. Maybe one of them is panic. Whatever you feel fit. It's just a way to keep track of how banged up you are, without it just being a number that's I'm on 3 of 19. It doesn't.
So when you filled your trauma pyramid, you're dead, or whatever, or whatever works for the thing. Is it possible to remove trauma?
Yeah, so the next section is recovering trauma, and again, it's just whatever works in your fiction. Maybe you take a rest for a while. Maybe you find someone that gives out magic bandages and magic potions. Maybe you, in fiction, we take a month off because we've all got broken legs, and we come back and then we kill the bad guy.
Just smoking pipes, staring off into the distance. So the trauma section is a section you really need to fill out in pencil.
Yeah, it's gonna be changing. Yeah. It's a good point. Yeah, I would like to think of a way to maybe have something that you don't go back and forth on as much. But I think in practice, as most of my playtests went, nobody really recovered much. They were just stacking up because each play session was effectively 3 hours in fiction. Mm-hmm. So each story took place over 2 days maybe, and no one really had time to recover anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, whatever fits your group, yeah. I suppose.
Yeah, and just down to how much trauma is getting doled out as well, I guess.
Yeah.
Alright, so I think we talked about common moves. We looked at the common moves card. Talked about how fight works. One of the nice things that you've done throughout your guide is everything comes with an example.
Shitloads of examples, yeah, basically. So all the common moves are listed, and most of them have. Well, they've all got examples. Some of them have a couple of just so that you know what it should be like when you're playing, as opposed to just reading a cue card.
Learn by reading, learn by doing, learn by seeing approaches. Yeah, there's some options there. All right, so talk about creating a character. So we looked at the playbook, we looked at the titles and moves, we looked at attributes, we looked at the background and Did we look at background and initial inventory and history and naming your horse?
I'm not sure. You can pull the sheet up. There's a background cheat sheet.
Yeah, we didn't pull up the background cheat sheet, so let's get that.
Yeah, so the idea of the you choose your playbook, what kind of style of story you're trying to tell, choose some attributes, see what you're good at, bad at, and then on your playbook sheet, you'll have some items to tick, and these backgrounds are effectively optional presets of something. So, like, I've done play tests where, I've had people be like, "Oh yeah, no, I was a preacher, and then I saw a devil, and now I'm like a badass devil hunting preacher man." Okay, you're totally set. You know what you are, no problem. If someone's maybe a little bit more, they're not as used to making that kind of forward choice about things, here is a set of backgrounds that you can be. So there's basically each choice is actually an item to pick when you make your character, and some questions to ask yourself and your character of what your background was, where did you come from, why are you now hunting monsters. So, for example, an outlaw, someone that's like a bandit or a cattle rancher or a smuggler, you can choose from. Maybe you've got some stolen valuables on you, maybe you've got a stick of dynamite, maybe you've got a bandana, and then you get to ask yourself, what crime did you commit? Who doesn't forgive you for doing that crime? And it's just a sort of like little prompt to maybe get the creative juices flowing of someone that doesn't feel, or maybe feels a bit more awkward.
Yeah, and these items are interesting as well, because Energizer pills for the medicine one, we can kind of get a vibe off of that. But then on the other end of the scale, a bear trap. Most of the time you can't use a bear trap, but if you've got one, I bet you'll find a way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's you're choosing what kind of story you want to tell. You were a trapper. You've got your pickaxe and shovel. I bet you're going to find a way to cause a landslide or to bury someone in something or that sort of thing.
Yeah, and then you've got items which obviously have an explicit use. Pair of handcuffs, pair of binoculars.
Yes,
and then other ones that are a camera and a tripod. That's very if you're not picking that if you're trying to win the game. You're picking that if you're trying to play it. Huh?
It's a lot more abstract. It's a lot more from a point of view of most RPGs are about quote unquote clearing the dungeon and killing the monsters. This game isn't, and maybe you'll find a good use. Maybe you're trying to document the werewolf and you're taking photos of it so that you can get the posse of villagers on board, something like that. It's like you say, there's a stick of dynamite has a very clear and explicit use of what you'll be doing with that dynamite, but a signed autograph of a household celebrity is way looser. But I'm sure if that appeals to you,
there's always a thing. If you've got it, you'll use it. No matter what it is, you'll find a way to crowbar in this thing, and it's entertaining.
I really believe in the idea that every choice you make when you're making a character for an RPG is you're choosing your verbs. You're choosing the thing that you want to do, no matter how big or small that is. Yeah. The choice of an axe over a polished mirror is a choice each way. You're choosing a thing that you want to do. It's a doing word.
So, All right.
So a nice wide gamut.
So name your horse. That seems pretty straightforward.
Name your horse.
Name your horse.
I nearly wrote a whole bunch of stuff about it, and then I was like, nah, it's nonsense. No, you name it to
just name your horse.
It's almost a punchline as a header. Just name your horse.
Name your horse. It's good though. I mean, there's no world where you wouldn't have named your horse.
Yeah.
You own a horse. Yeah. Then we talk. You pick a playbook. We went through these: the fighter, the sneak, the thinker, the weirdo. We looked at the sneak in detail. The fighter does what it says on the tin. Thinkers, your academic. Your weirdos, somewhat magical,
occulty things. Yeah.
And then obviously these have subsets: commander, sharpshooter, tank, etc. We've got some explanations here for how to set your attributes and picking your backgrounds. We've got some example. We've got it typed out here with some examples of like what you're trying to do for the playbook, and then this section here called "Unfortunate Family." This is just something to think about, right? And then
so I've just thrown in. I wanted some art, and then I was like, oh, hold on, my art can be random tables. So I've just thrown together
some vibe cards,
some random shit.
Yeah, so we're like, pick like. You don't have to. They're numbered, but you can make your own. Obviously,
do what you want.
Clear vibe of this
there's
game.
6 of them, so you can roll with them if you want.
And then this section, which I think is really good, is choosing, like, designing your character's history, because it's difficult. Because people,
it is difficult. Yeah,
it
is
trying to put together a background for a character. It's a whole thing, and you've
there are some people that turn up to RPGs that have 3 A4 pages of like, here's everything about my person, and that's great. Some people really struggle with it, and that's also understandable. And I wanted a thing of like, here's to prompt you if you're feeling awkward, if you're feeling like you can't. I guess I'm a cowboy. That's understandable to have that nervousness, and it's why there's little questions on the background cards. It's little things just to prompt your creative juices.
So yeah, that's because you get people who join and they're like, oh yeah, I was a mouse who was cursed to be a human, and I don't know the rest, but I'll figure it out as I go. Great if you're playing 30 sessions, not so great if you're playing 3. So yeah, this kind of covers all of that. Let's have a little look here. Items and equipment.
Yeah, so I just I have a little paragraph at the start saying like, it's non-exhaustive. You will come up with your own cowboy items. Don't worry about wanting to give a player something that's not on this list. But here is a list of stuff that maybe you just use it as inspiration more than anything, I suppose.
Like the weird devices. A bronze cube turns 6 cubic feet of everything into ash. Requires human blood to activate.
Yeah. All the names taken from my favourite metal albums and metal songs. I guess points to Hot Dice Nerds that can find those references.
Are these items that people are starting with, or are these items that just randomly exist within the game?
So the second one. So these are just example equipment of like, I'm giving you tonal flavour for what I would run the game as.
Right. Okay. So these are kind
maybe there's a lunatic running around that's found the Crow Priest's staff. And
got it.
Doing something that's the mission is to kill him or whatever.
All right. So weapons make your character come with tags, and then you've listed out the tags here.
Yep. So like we spoke about earlier, these are just fictional prompts for things. Maybe you have a revolver that is discreet but slow. Maybe you have a rifle that's dangerous but forceful, etc.
Yeah. Okay. So you might pick one that's like precise but awkward, for example.
Yeah.
Balance them out. Yeah. Forceful and messy.
This idea came out of like some other Apocalypse World games do this, and I wasn't going to bother because I thought, well, everyone knows what a revolver is. We don't need tags on revolvers. But then in the very first play session, somebody was like, I want to barter and haggle for a revolver that can specifically turn people into fucking Play-Doh. I want a revolver that messes people, like it's nearly a shotgun. This thing just blows people away. And then I was like, oh no, there's a reason. Yeah, it's not enough to write revolver on your character sheet. You clearly want revolver, open brackets, messy, turns people into mist.
Yeah. Then you talked about like common melee, common range, and you've given some like basically examples of like the way that you can do this. But then you've also talked about a way to get, which is you've talked about where do you get that. You're putting a background onto your weapon, gift from an old employer, something like that, which I think is a fun thing to do. Normally you design your own background, and then you're like, also I have a sword.
Yeah.
Stolen
So
from a corpse.
it's just something that you like, and also because it exists, because I've wrote it down and it exists in the book, it's an opportunity for the GM to be like, you can have that revolver, and it can be precise, but it's weird, and every time you use it, you have really terrible nightmares and something's coming for you. Like, it's a thing that you can tweak and play with.
And that's why you write the background for it. So this is a game that very much relies on a strong session 0.
Yes, I would say so. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah,
Because you need a bit of guidance. You need someone who's like got a good grasp on the rules. People who've read the books or like read the guide for players. The GM who's read the GM guide. Like, you're ready to go through it together to get to grips with, like, all right, who are we? What's our deal? What's the stuff?
Yeah.
How do we like what are all of our things? I think a strong session 0 that covers both knowing, oh, I've got this gun and it like will turn you to mist when you fire it at someone, and it only works at very close range. And I want it in a prize fight who died cursing my name and screaming to hell as like a as I want it off of him. I can now whenever I see fog, I can hear his voice on the wind, like this kind of thing, or like really helps both the player understand like how their weapon feels to use and like how they are as how their character is as a person in the world. But the GM gets a vibe for like this as well, and it makes it telling a story attached to an item makes it easier to remember that you have it, what it's for, and how it works.
Totally, yeah.
So
yeah.
like that's not just for the player to remember that I have a gun that works at close range that turns people to mist, but here in that story helps the GM remember, oh, I shoot my gun. They don't have to look at a sheet to be like, oh, close range.
What damage does that
power.
do? Yeah,
They're just like,
kind of game.
Oh, the mist gun. Yeah.
Yeah. The bad guys in the game are that they are as strong as the story needs them to be.
Yeah.
As opposed to like building an encounter, for example.
So from a player's perspective, that takes us to the end of what we've been looking at for.
Yeah, so that's it. So it's a short book. It's not a massive book. I just try to, get everything out there, throw in a bunch of art and examples to get.
You took out the art, you took out the examples, and you assumed that people knew everything about RPGs. This would be very short, but
yes.
You built a guide so that everyone is supported and no one should feel lost. And
without examples and art, it comes. I think it's in at like 10 pages, and even then, most of my paragraphs are like repeating the same thing 3 or 4 times just to really hammer home. Like, I could have a bullet point that's like, don't think about money. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
that
money and wealth, not a thing. Don't worry.
Not a thing. It could fit on a business card. But yeah, just.
So we looked at the character portraits, and we looked at just the Sneaks playbook. I know that we've also got a running the game guide for GMs, and I'd like to just for like 5 minutes go through that.
Yeah, I guess let's go through that, because the playbooks are the same thing but different.
Yeah,
narrative directions.
I think they're interesting, and I think they're worth. We've got 20 more minutes for anyone watching the stream who's enjoying it. So if we're going to look at 4 things for 5 minutes each, we'll look at the running the game for 5 minutes, and then we'll look at the fighter, thinker, and weirdo for 5 minutes, and then we'll have looked at all the player characters, and we'll have archetypes, and we'll have a good idea of what the deal is if you're trying to run this.
You'll know what's happening.
Yes. Go.
So I guess the real important bit, the real bit that is like the value of what you're getting, is if you jump down to the section called the GM move list, because in this game the GMs have moves like the players do.
Doing GM moves.
So it's a short explanation of.
Here we go. GM move list.
Yeah. So it's you as a GM should be doing things in response to player actions when they roll a 6 or less, when one of the players or all of the players looks at you to ask, what now? What happens now? Or when the players give you a golden opportunity to do so, when they've deliberately ignored danger, or they have deliberately pissed off the wrong person, when they've like open themselves up for some bullshit, there are your 3 trigger points of when you're doing things. And then the idea is you should do in response to those whatever you feel is appropriate. Now that is really, really vague. I don't want to just leave people with like, do some fun story stuff. Because I hate that in RPGs when they're like, how do you run the game? Well, make sure that every NPC has a name. Thanks. I don't. That doesn't help me.
Anything else? Oh yeah, have fun with it.
Yeah, like how do I run this game? Give the players lots of magic items. They love them, and I'm like, wonderful. I don't know how to play it. So here is a palette of things that you can do to fuck over your players. It is the list. It is the list of consequences that you can throw at your players when they roll poorly or they, they've got some stuff coming their way. They've pissed off the wrong person.
That's it. They've asked for and receive and need to receive chaos.
Yeah. So I wanted to give this list of like, yeah, the West is a weird and dangerous place. Use that, or reveal a nasty truth to just make one up on the spot. Oh, it turns out that NPC you know is a bad guy. Or you can apply some trauma and telegraph further danger. And again, each of these things has examples.
Yeah.
Have a monster go boss music mode is a great one. You're not sure, someone rolls 6, you're not sure what to do to them. Well, now it can spit acid. Like, deal with it.
Apply trauma, telegraph danger, reveal a nasty truth, like the current big bad's working for a bigger one. Work the West against them, like gas and flames and lanterns and torches easily cause overwhelming fire, smoke and sound. Have a monster go boss mode, so its claws suddenly extend even further and its hair stands up straight and it starts leaping, or show signs of a threat, passerby eyeing them suspiciously, or hey, what's that guy standing next to the sheriff reloading his rifle? What's he doing? Was he doing that when we walked in? So, yeah, strip them of their resources, give them an impossible choice, turn their move back on them, offer an opportunity with a cost, highlight a weakness they have, offer a distraction by their background. If you are a GM, this is an absolute godsend of a list.
It's just a list of stuff that's like, oh, they've rolled a 6, and I'm so caught up in remembering my NPC names and what my players can do, and you're like, we all know it. Everyone that's ran a game knows that feeling of like, oh, my player was going to do something, and we all thought they'd do it, and they've rolled poorly. I now have to give them something.
You can essentially just throw a dart at this page and do whatever it hits.
And it's just one of the things. Hopefully, should work. No matter what we're doing, take away a resource. They drop their gun. They drop their lantern. Something like that. And it's a list that, again, like basically everything in the book, let it be inspiration. This doesn't have to be canonical. These are your only 8 choices you can make. You read this list quickly and you're like, oh, of course, I should have offered them that opportunity. Okay, you can make the jump, but X bad thing happens.
Yeah. I like the impossible choice section. Give them a choice between losing a piece of equipment, taking some trauma, 2 NPCs in lethal danger.
Yeah, just fun, like, oh, you thought things were going really well. Not that well. Because they roll a 7, 8, or a 9, for example. And then, yeah, so the rest of the book, the rest of the running the game PDF is stuff that we've probably all heard, just loose, how to, like, prepare things, how to speak to players, that sort of stuff. I guess the last, there's a big 4-page long example of playing the game, which hopefully people will find useful. Some more tonal art, that sort of thing.
Yeah, there's plenty in here.
And then the final bit that I think is hopefully you get a lot of value again is the spark tables. Mm-hmm. So right at the end, this is making content. If you need a villain and you don't have a villain in mind, roll a bunch of 6-sided dice and add all the sentences together, and you make a villain in real time.
I'm going to do that right now. I'm gonna make a villain. Hang on, let me get my dice.
Go for it.
Here we go. Massive nerdy dice roller things.
That's so sick.
So good. Alright. Got D6. Alright, so my villain's goal is to humiliate or show weakness off. Their appearance is they're stocky, muscled, and well built. So they're stocky, muscled, well built who likes to humiliate others. Their target is a friend or a partner, and their origin is a cult member, religious, heretic, or heathen. And they like to do things by abusing an ancient site of natural magics, and their secret weakness is a desperate, worsening drug addiction. That's
like,
that's
if you can't turn that person into a villain in real time, I can't help you. But
Yeah.
that's like that's how you. I just wanted something that, like, you know, oh god, I forgot we're playing tonight. Shit, I need a thing. And there's a bunch of them. That's the idea. There's a bunch of these Spark tables that are multiple tables per category of thing.
Let's
So
look
you
at-
can add some sentences together and hopefully make yourself some Wild West content.
Let's take a little look at our 3 archetypes then. So the fighter.
Yeah. So the fun bits are the tiles, really, I guess. But I mean, you're going to use all of it. But yeah, the commander can, like, force people into a posse and have people working on his side and turn the tide of combat and things like that. The sharpshooter can always shoot really far and can do extra things whenever he aims and fires, and also has a wonderful mechanic of they can appear in a scene that they're not currently in on a rooftop with their gun trained at someone. Which I've had people abuse wonderfully.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
And then the tank, yeah, it's really hard to hurt. They're always secretly armoured. They can protect people really well. They can set up defences really well.
Nice.
Yeah, and then your moves are about reading enemies, doing extra damage in combat, being able to pull your weapon faster, and my favourite for last is you get to have a special gun that you can choose, like some little bonuses that you can have. My gun's handle is warm to the touch when supernatural enemies are nearby.
Advantage on aim and fire rolls. that's
All the
pretty
time,
fantastic.
constantly blowing people away.
Just rarely misses. Like, doesn't even have to look up from a book.
Yeah. Which is great, yeah. I particularly like my handle is warm to the touch when supernatural monsters are nearby, because that's Sting from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
like a weapon. That's Frodo's gun.
Right, so we already looked at the sneak. The thinker. This is an interesting one.
Yeah, so the Thinker was born out of the idea that I know that there are people that like to play RPGs that are scared about getting hurt and they don't want to piss off the NPCs and they don't want to get shot at. This is a character that lets you live out that fantasy of still having things to do in the story, but you're not directly shooting at anyone or sneaking into the building. It's just you get to do things because the benefit of the game being it's all story based and narrative focused. I can do that. So there's a researcher, a technologist, and a surgeon, loosely split into the academic type, who can scrutinize old buildings and old places, has advantage when they're reasoning about things. The technologist gets a gadget. I really love that in your downtime you can just build a gadget if you have the resources for it. What does that mean?
That's good,
it
yeah.
means
Well, I
if
don't
we
know
ki-
what it
if we
would
kill
mean
that
specifically
scrap
for a
monster-
gadget. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to play create a magnesium flashbang. Like, I'm gonna storm the building. Can he make flashbangs? Yeah, I guess. The surgeon is obviously like some players just like to be the support role in healing people.
Sure.
Lets you do some healing. They have fun moves. So this challenge of like, what does a thinker do narratively? So I've come up with what I hope to be some interesting things. So Elementary, my dear, is a chance for the player to put together evidence and suspicions and then roll, and if they roll high enough, those suspicions are true.
Oh, okay.
Retroactively and canonically. Whatever you were doing, I'm pretty sure that Jim the Butcher is the murderer of the woman that lived down the road.
Roll high enough. Turns out it was.
If you present your evidence, and if we all agree it's possible, well, you get to be the one that's like, I've worked the thing out, and because the game's so loose, it doesn't fall apart by having that happen.
Yeah. Oh
Some
no, Jim's gone
RPGs
to
will
jail.
suffer.
Jim's going to be hung in the morning. Like,
Yeah, like
sorry. Whether Jim is hung or not is his own business.
Jim might be hung. Good for Jim. And yeah, a friend in need. I like this idea of you can turn up to a place and have an NPC there who is your friend already. You can rock up and be like, "Don't worry, I know the sheriff." Dig up the dirt is a fun one. Of you can go over papers, you can pour through documents, you can read newspapers, and then you get to choose. You can say, "Okay, who's really in charge of the group that I'm investigating?" Well, maybe up until this point in the GM's head, it was the big bad guy, obviously. But now you've dug the dirt up. Maybe it's the big bad guy's son. Maybe it's a demon. Maybe it's something else.
Yeah.
So it's a fun way. Again, we're talking about this affecting the narrative, that sort of stuff. And then the last one is you get to make up a plan that you're going to do soon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you follow through on that plan, you get a bunch of bonuses. You can choose things that are definitely true. Because I love the idea of being like...
if the gang listen to the smart one, they stand a higher chance of succeeding in their efforts. Anyone goes off playbook, you're going to find that like things are going to start to go south.
Yeah, I've picked the wording deliberately, so it's like you can choose an impossible thing to come true. So your plan can be like, don't worry, the vault will be unlocked. We just have to get in the building. And you can roll and then like, yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Because you planned it. You did your scheming.
Sure.
Doesn't matter about the details, you're the thinker.
Yeah. Alright, and then as our fourth archetype, we've got the weirdo.
Yeah, so, it's a Weird West game. I wanted people to be able to do weird things. So, yeah, occultist people, you've learned about the devils. You can read devil script. You can you own a strange magic artifact. That's a fun one. We had a player that picked it and then had the randomly teleport, and they just activated it all the time. Just teleported around without their choice to get out of danger. The seer is like a classic, someone that has visions, a clairvoyant type, however you want to flavour it. And then a servant is because the best class in D&D 5th edition is the warlock, and I just like being that idea of like, I'm someone's bitch, but I'm magic. I just think it's a fun story thing. So there's something there for that as well.
You
and then
sold your soul
all
for
of their moves.
For a cantrip.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's great. And their moves are about speaking to dead people and healing their friends at a cost to themselves. They've got one about cursing objects. That's fun. It's deliberately quite loose. You can curse an object to have terror the next time someone touches it. And then Doolittle is just a fun talk to animals thing. I knew I wanted to include like a druidic, I could tell crows what to do.
What people like, crows are also excellent for like a kind of mood animal.
Yeah.
So, if you just watched all of this and you're like, what about the sneak? You've missed episode 1. Episode 1. Head to hotdicenerds.com and you can watch it in many places. If you're listening on a podcast, it was the last podcast. If you're watching us on YouTube, it was the last YouTube. You get the vibe. If you're watching on Twitch, guess what? If it's more than 2 weeks since we last streamed, then it's...
Watch it on YouTube.
Yeah. So what's going to happen next is, now that we have Tom, the game author, he's going to... pick from a stable of people he knows and Hot Dice Nerds to find people who can play for long enough at the same time internationally on consistent days. The ultimate challenge. People think learning rules for RPGs is hard. No, scheduling. Scheduling is the
boss.
Is the greatest boss again for all RPGs. So we will now enter the scheduling battle, and when we've solved scheduling, we'll be back for Weird West, the tabletop RPG played by Hot Dice Nerds and run by Tom G.
A handful of cowboy bullshit sessions that I am very much looking forward to.
Yeah. I look particularly forward to yelling, "Have you read the book?" at people that say they want to play. So Yeah, that would be fun.
It's right. As a system, I think it works well with just people that don't read the book, because you just do what you want and then I'll tell you to roll, and then things will get fucked up.
Yeah, I feel like you've said that, and now the 3 sessions that we play, you will constantly look like Ben Affleck having a cigarette.
I apologise as I was saying the words, I knew I was wrong.
All right, for people who watch us live, thank you very much. For people who watch us on
watching, guys.
YouTube or anywhere else, love you very much as well. Hit us up on Twitter, twitter.com/HotDiceNerds, obviously, everything, Hot Dice Nerds. Instagram /HotDiceNerds, if that's where you want to find us, sure, why not? Come on down. Can't find us on Facebook because we're all under 50. All right, thanks very much, and cheers, bye.
Cheers.